The supreme leader of Iran is hiding in a bunker right now, according to reports. With that being said, airlines are canceling flights in and out of Israel. Right now, there are about 40,000 U.S. troops stationed in the Middle East. The envoy of Trump to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, as well as Jared Kushner, are right now in Israel. On top of that, there are high top U.S. military officials in Israel. And on top of that, major Israeli cities are opening public bomb shelters. So what do they know that we don't? Let's talk about it. Shalom from Israel. I'm Hananya Naftali with the latest update from the Middle East. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has reportedly gone underground, literally. He moved into a fortified bunker into Iran with a series of tunnels. I mean, it's like they all love tunnels. It's like, what's the matter with that? But the reason he did that is just in case the US or Israel decide to strike. Now, I think it's just interesting why he always runs underground while leaving the rest of the regime. It's like, you guys deal with whatever problem I created. I'm more important than you, so yeah, I'm gone. And I don't understand why or how long is it going to take for the regime to actually wake up and understand that they're also being played by the Ayatollah himself. Look, the Iranian regime is not just sweating, it's shaking. And when a regime like that, built on decades of brutal control and unchallenged power, start making escape plans, we remember how they also had the potential escape plan during the protests inside Iran for Khamenei to escape to Moscow. So when they start making all kinds of these plans, something's up. According to Iranian opposition sources, Khamenei's third son, again, it's not official, but Masoud Khamenei, his son, has taken over day-to-day leadership, while the Ayatollah himself is hiding out. Again, it's like, this is not a power move, it's a panic move. When dictators start passing the baton in secret, they're not planning for the next election, they're planning for survival. But it gets even more interesting, because President Trump announced that a massive US naval strike group is heading toward Iran. We have the massive USS Abraham Lincoln, several destroyers, and additional air defense systems being deployed. He said, and I quote, "We have a lot of ships heading towards Iran, and maybe we won't have to use them." Maybe. That's the key word, maybe. Look, many people are asking me, what is actually going to happen? Are we going to expect war this weekend, tomorrow? The thing is that I think what we saw with the 12-day war, it's something that really changed the expected versus the unexpected, because Trump, on the one hand, Trump gave the regime 60 days to negotiate. When day 61 came and they didn't still negotiate or reach a deal, he gave Israel the green light, and he also joined the strike. And also, you know, some people pointed out that he told Israel, do not bomb the regime, but then in secret, he actually gave Israel the green light to bomb the regime and strike all their nuclear facilities, ballistic missile factories, and all that. So obviously, I think it's a great move so that no one knows your next move. But we don't really know what is up with that, because he also said in the Davos convention that he is open to talks. And look, with that being said, I will have to say that honestly, it is in America's interest to strike Iran if it means dismantling the regime for good. Because this is a regime that sponsors terrorism, threatens global energy routes, and massacres its own people. Iran's missiles don't just endanger Israel, they endanger US troops as well across the region. The Strait of Hormuz, which Iran constantly threatens, is a choke point for 20% of the world's oil. The regime has been caught red-handed, by the way, targeting Americans through its proxies in Iraq and Syria. And if Iran gets nukes, that's what actually essentially Israel is trying to prevent, then every American city becomes a potential target. So acting now is not warmongering. It's preventing disaster later. And look, if we look at the situation in Israel, with everything being said, we see that bomb shelters have been opened in Tel Aviv, Haifa, and other major cities. This country it doesn't take chances when it comes to protecting its people. We've lived through too many wars to brush off credible threats. Now, the Home Front Command is kind of lowering the panic levels because they said that there's no change in official instructions, and if there will be, they're gonna let everybody know in advance. But of course, the general instruction in Israel, it's not official, but that's generally recommended to have enough food and water for 72 hours. So friends of mine that I've been discussing with, they're telling me, we started to make sure that we have enough food in the bomb shelter. I mean, that's pretty much routine. But look, it's important to get ahead of the game with this. And this tells me something, one thing. First of all, what Israelis are feeling, that something might happen. And the things that we see on the ground. And look, the facts on the ground, they do tell us that something is coming. It might not be tonight. It might not be tomorrow. But the chess pieces are moving and the board is heating up. And what's the first thing, by the way, before a war starts? Airlines are starting to cancel flights. During the 12-day war with Iran, most, if not all, the planes belonging to El Al were flown out of the country in a secret operation for their protection. I mean, the plane cost them, millions of shekels, millions of dollars. They wanted to protect their assets, as well as the Prime Minister's state plane that flew, if I'm not wrong, to Greece or Cyprus. By the way, the reason that was so important to launch this secret operation, even though to help a commercial company like El Al, is because planes are considered a state asset. Like this is essential for Israel. So that's why they do that. But look, airlines don't just move because they're dramatic. They move because historically they learned that when the skies are they start filling with military hardware, war usually follows. And we also can't forget why Iran is this mess to begin with. In just the past few weeks, over 41,000 Iranians have been arrested. Again, these are official numbers, and more than 5,000 have been killed during the brutal crackdown on protests. Yes, thousands. And the number is still climbing. And again, like I said, this is the official number, but the unofficial number stands at about 26,000 people killed in just a few days. By the way, I'm asking, I hope you're asking too, where were the UN human rights groups, Amnesty International, all these groups that always, are so quick to jump when it comes to condemning Israel. But then when Iranians actually need your help, they're crying for help. Where were their voices? These were not violent protests. These were everyday Iranians, mothers, students, workers, protesting for freedom, protesting the collapse of their economy and the dictatorship that's choking their future. What was the regime's response to these protests? Guns, executions, internet blackouts, torture. Listen, they hired militias that literally opened machine gun fire on protesters. Some of the protesters were even labeled enemies of God, a charge that carries the death penalty in Iran. That's not justice. That's religious tyranny. That's using God's name to maintain a stranglehold on power. And now they're scared enough to send the Ayatollah into a bunker. Dictators always think they're untouchable until they're not. The book of Daniel reminds us that God brings down kings and sets up others. When leaders turn their back on truth and rule through blood and fear, their fall is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the Iranian regime has ruled through terror for over 40 years. But you can only spill so much blood before the ground starts to cry out. I don't shed a tear when tyrants tremble. I care about the people of Iran, not the regime that enslaved them. And if America takes out that terror machine, I'll thank God, not because I want war, but because I want to see evil fall. And if Israel joins in, even better. Because we've been on the front lines of Iranian aggression for decades. And it's time the world recognizes Iran is not just Israel's problem. It's the world's problem. Iran's Revolutionary Guard, they said recently that they're more than ready and their finger is on the trigger, something like that. Sounds scary, sounds big, but here's a reality check. The Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Army, they're not asleep. Our Air Force has already proven that it can reach Tehran and back. Remember the 12-day war? Remember what happened? Because Iran's top commanders didn't. They just didn't survive it. Look, if we're honest, the Iranian regime forces are exhausted. Because before they could recover from the 12-day war with Israel that completely dominated airspace in Iran and, shattered all their, commanders and all that, months later, the people started to protest from within and demand freedom. So that also took their energy and power and attention. So let's just put it this way. The regime is not in a position of power. Maduro also thought that he was in a position of power, pretending to negotiate with America until he wasn't. So it's funny how they always live in this illusion of power until that bubble explodes in their faces. I'm tired of hearing war leaders saying, we're monitoring the situation and we're looking at what's going on. Enough. Okay? Iran has murdered thousands of its own people. Armed Hezbollah and Hamas send drones toward Israel and openly threatens genocide against Jews. How long do we wait? It's time for strong leadership, not recycled statements. It's time to finish the job. Clearly, the 12-day war was a good start, but it didn't stop the regime from keeping their ambition alive of nuclear weapon and ballistic missiles. They were bragging about them working to restore it and that this site wasn't hit and that site wasn't hit. They still want to destroy all of us, perhaps even more now than before. And if President Trump is serious about taking out Iran's nuclear program and stopping this mad regime from slaughtering more people, I say go for it with the blessing of God. And I say it without hesitation. Don't let the Ayatollah crawl back out of that bunker. And if you're watching this and you love truth, you love freedom, and you love Israel, then do me a favor, subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. You won't get this kind of analysis and truth from the mainstream media. That's for sure. And if you want to help fight back against BDS and against all the Israel haters, then visit the IsraelStore.com. Grab something, support the truth. Listen, we're not backing down. While the world is holding its breath right now, I'm going to leave you with this. God is not surprised by any of this. So he sits on the throne. God is watching over nations and he defends his people. Isaiah 54 verse 17 says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. That's a promise that wasn't just for then, it's for now, and it's for Israel. I'll keep watching. I'll keep updating you. Thank you so much for your prayers. Shalom from Israel. I'm Hananya Naftali.